Today, our main objectives will cover 1. Data types in programming. Our second objective will cover what is a constant and a variable in programming. Let's begin with our first objective with introduction. In programming, data types are like different containers or boxes that hold different kinds of information. Just like we have different types of things in the real world, like numbers and words, computers also have different types of data they can work with. Here are some common data types in programming. Integer represents whole numbers without any fractions or decimal parts. Examples include 1, -5, or 100. Float/double represents numbers with decimal points. It can store fractional values or numbers with greater precision. Examples include 3.14 or -2.5. String represents a sequence of characters, such as letters, numbers, and symbols. It is used to store and manipulate textual data. Boolean represents a logical value that can be either true or false. It is used for making decisions and performing logical operations. Examples include true or false. Character or char, as we call it, represents a single character, such as a letter, digit, or symbol. Examples include A, 7, or $. Array. As we have seen in our previous lesson, array represents a collection of elements of the same data type. It allows storing multiple values under a single variable name. Object represents a complex data structure that combines multiple data types and behaviors into a single entity. Objects have properties, variables, and methods, functions, associated with them. We have come to the end of the data types in programming, but listen to this important note. It's important to choose the right data type for the type of information you want to store or manipulate in your program. Using the correct data type ensures that the computer understands how to handle and process the data correctly. For example, if you want to store someone's age, you will use an integer data type. If you want to store a person's name, you will use a string data type. If you want to store a decimal value like a weight or a temperature, you will use a float data type. By using the appropriate data types, programmers can ensure that the computer accurately represents and works with different types of information, making programs more flexible and powerful. Question time. Mention any 5 data type you have learnt and explain. Well done. Now let's take a look at our second objective in the next slide. Now let's start with our second objective for this tutorial on what is a constant and a variable in programming. Let's start. In programming, constants and variables are used to store and manipulate data. They are like containers or boxes that hold information, just like how you use a box to store your toys or a drawer to keep your clothes. Constants are like special boxes that hold information that doesn't change throughout the program. Once you put something in a constant, you can't change it. For example, let's say you have a constant named pi and you put the value 3.14 in it. In your program, you can use the constant pi whenever you need to use the value of pi. It stays the same and doesn't change. Variables are like regular boxes that can hold different values, and you can change what's inside them as your program runs. For example, you can have a variable named score, to keep track of a player's score in a game. You can start with an initial value like 0, and as the player scores points, you can change the value of the variable to reflect the updated score. The important thing to remember is that constants and variables are used to store data, but constants stay the same while variables can change. Using constants and variables allows us to write flexible and dynamic programs. We can store and manipulate different types of information as our program runs, making it more interactive and adaptable. For example, if you're creating a game, you can use a constant for the maximum number of lives a player has, and a variable to keep track of the current number of lives. As the player loses or gains lives, you update the variable accordingly. By using constants and variables, we can make our programs more powerful, adaptable, and capable of handling various situations and scenarios. Now let's take some few importance or benefits when using constants and variables. Benefits of using variables. 1. It helps in easy organization. Variables allow us to organize and keep track of different pieces of information in our programs. Instead of using the values directly, we can give them names and store them in variables. It's like having labels on boxes to help us find things easily. 2. It helps us in calculations and operations. Variables allow us to perform calculations and operations on values. We can add, subtract, multiply, or divide the values stored in variables. For example, if we have variables for height and width, we can multiply them to calculate the area of a rectangle. 3. Reusability. Once we create a variable, we can use it multiple times in our program. This saves us from writing the same value over and over again. It's like having a magic box that can hold different things and we can use it whenever we want. 4. Interactivity. Variables make our programs interactive. We can use them to store and update information based on user input. For example, in a game, we can use variables to keep track of the player's score or the level they are on. In conclusion, by using variables, we can organize our information, make our programs more interactive, perform calculations, and make our code easier to read and maintain. They are a powerful tool in programming that allows us to create dynamic and adaptable programs. Let's look at some benefits using constants in our programming. 1. Easy maintenance. Constants make our programs easier to maintain. If we need to change a value that is used in multiple places, we only need to update the constant's value once. It's like changing the value in one box, and all the places that use that constant will automatically get the new value. 2. Fixed values. Constants have values that don't change throughout the program. Once you put something in a constant, it stays the same. It's like having a box with something you can't take out or change. 3. Meaningful names. Constants have names that describe what they represent. For example, if we have a constant called max_speed set to 100, it tells us that it represents the maximum speed and its value is 100. This makes our code more meaningful and easier to understand. 4. Prevent mistakes. Constants help prevent mistakes in our code. If we have a value that shouldn't be changed, we can use a constant to make sure nobody accidentally changes it. It's like putting a lock on the box so nobody can open it. In conclusion, by using constants, we can make our code more readable, prevent mistakes, ensure consistency, and make it easier to maintain. Constants provide stability and clarity to our programs by keeping values fixed and providing meaningful names. Question time. 1. What is the difference between constants and variables? 2. Give two benefit each of constants and variables.
Thank you for watching.